So good morning. Or good afternoon.
I am for, what time is it? So 11 hours in my office at the moment.
And I've been in my office for about 30 minutes.
Great balance.
And so between us, there's very little wasting of time.
Exactly. And that's the very important part, because unfortunately we are wasting too much time.
Yeah, this whole thing of time is an interesting concept. There's a woman that I know here in Atlanta. Her name is Juliet Funt, F-U-N-T. And the title of her book is A Minute to Think.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially the idea is that because people are so busy that they don't have time to think, they don't have time to innovate, to be creative, to have any of their own life, because of meetings, because I forget what she identifies like 5 or 6 different time wasters, and she does a lot of work with companies that, how do you free up that time? And it's not just time to do other stuff, it's time literally to think.
And it is generally, we have to change the understanding of the time itself, because in my country we say, and I think in English is probably similar, we say that we are running, or the time is running away from us. That's not true. The time is here. It just depends on the way whether we can understand it, whether it is our enemy or a friend. For me, time becomes friend. I don't wear any watch. Of course, we have in a smartphone, and everywhere there is a watch. You don't need it to wear it on. But I don't use any.
Same.
Exactly. I don't use any alarm clocks, anything like that. Where the right time you feel it, you start to go, you went somewhere, and you are there in time. You are there maybe earlier, probably. And fine for me, I will ride around on my electric unicycle. I will enjoy the time. And then when the meeting starts, it will start. I will be there in time. This is why I do not understand at all why the organizer of online events, which should start at 12, are waiting another 5 or 10 minutes for the participants to join. It's not like I have to take the flight to you and all over the globe. No, I just need to go from my one table maybe to another one, but in the same room. And this is why I really start sharp and end sharp. That's the way, because then you will not waste other people's time and your time as well. That's so important.
It's interesting. I guess a lot of this depends on culture, where some people are very precise on time, to the point I had a client who was German, and it was a German company that had merged with an American company. And I remember in the meeting, it had gotten a little tense. So I said, why don't we take a break? Everyone take 15 minutes. We'll come back. And he says, no, 7 minutes. And I look at him, I'm like, why 7 minutes? And he says, that's the amount of time it takes me to go downstairs, smoke a cigarette, come back upstairs, go to the bathroom, wash my hands, and get back. If I can do that, so can everybody else. That was a little too precise for me.
On the other hand, I worked for 5 years for a large Japanese corporation, one of the largest in Japan generally. And Japanese are known as to keeping the time and everything just in time, just in sequence. All these came from generally Japanese production systems. But the question is of efficient use of the time. And we spent a lot of time in meetings and everything was planned, but the result was 0 because it was wasted time. If you have a meeting for a meeting, to arrange the next meeting, that's nothing more than a wasting of time. We don't need to talk for 24 hours. For us, it's 50 minutes will be fine. We will record, we will deliver the messages which we would like to, and that's the way. So this is why, for example, if I do an interviews or a podcast or so, and the host would like to send me questions, I said, no, please don't. It must be natural flow. Because
Sure.
if you prepare, it will not be natural anymore in a way which will be attractive to the people. And only natural flow will let your brain work much more harder and really utilize every single second to deliver the answers. And this is why I love so our last talk, because it was exactly this way. We met for the first time, and it was already, we have been able to talk with no barriers, with no censorship. We just talked, and this is why I'm happy we can do it again.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's when things get too prescribed, you don't have that free flow of ideas. I mean, that's the issue in a lot of companies, because it's so prescribed. It's stuff is memorized instead of, if you learn it instead of memorizing it, you can use it and you can talk about it. And it's interesting, you made the comment about it being freeing. I remember when I was doing some of my initial presentations on the superpowers, and I was thinking, all these points I had to get out and I had to tell people, and I was getting stressed. So I could only imagine how it was coming across when I finally put my notes away and I had slides with pictures, some bullet points, and so on. I'm like, I know this stuff. I can just talk. And it was so freeing, because, in talking about time, I'm probably more, although I'm American 100%, I probably look at time a lot more like the Spanish do. Because if I'm having a conversation and you and I experience this, we scheduled an hour or a half hour. If the conversation is going and it's productive, unless I have a meeting I have to stop for, I will let that flow. I'll say at the hour, are you okay if we continue? But I'm not going to say, okay, we only have 5 minutes left. Let's wrap this up, because that's not a natural conclusion.
It is exactly the same. And for example, I'm not able to deliver a presentation written by someone else, because it's not yours. It's not generally yours. It's not the time and so on. So when I prepare for a presentation and I am given 15 minutes, it will be exactly 15 minutes, because I have to train my speech all the time because of my speech disorder. I have to train it like the actor is training the role. So I have to be, and I pre-record it and really measure it. When it's 15 minutes, it's fine. And this is exactly, if for sure, you was on many conferences and events where every speaker gets 15 minutes, but almost none speak 15 minutes. They are speaking too long. Or if you go to doctor, I just spoke with my father. He was invited for 10. He was waiting for 2 hours in the waiting room. And then he just hand over some papers, and the nurse told him, come next week. So after two hours waiting for handing a piece of paper, he was so angry. He's 81, so he has another time to spend, not to sit in the hospital handing over his papers. So, and it is exactly so. And generally, it is, I have, my granddad was 99 when he passed away last year. And we discussed a lot of time, and I was time to time with him to the doctor. And he said, we need to be there at 10, but I know that we will wait for 2 hours. And everybody knows that they will wait for 2 hours, which means the doctor cannot work with his or her time. He or she knows that every single patient needs some time. So the setup, the right setup, is not so hard to make. It's quite a small city generally, so she knows all the patients. So, but she's not interested in doing so. And that's wrong, because we are wasting someone else's time. That's completely wrong. So we have to really learn to work with, not to see only us, but to see everyone. It's an ecosystem. So we are part of the ecosystem. And nature, have you ever seen a tree watching the watch that tomorrow I have to deliver the apples? No, not a single business plan, not a single watch there. It's fine. If it's not, will be, if not tomorrow, it will be day after tomorrow or 5 days later. It's fine. And still, nature is here for a few millions of years, not us.
You know, the thing that's interesting, you know, you talk about doctors, and it's worse here, I think. Or let's just say it's probably bad everywhere. You know, the doctor's time is valuable. Your time isn't. And they will charge you if you're too late. They'll charge you if you miss an appointment. But I don't get to charge them for, you know, the 90 minutes I spend waiting. And that part of that is because they're trying to make efficient use of their time to get as many people in to, whether it's revenue maximizing, you know, whatever it is, but it's at the expense of somebody else. Now, what's interesting here in the States, and you probably did this too during COVID, was this whole idea of telehealth. So at telehealth, I don't need to go to the waiting room. I can be working here. I get on at my appointed time, and there's a doctor. And we can get 95% of the stuff done. But my doctor has a rule now, is that if you need refills or another prescription, you need to come in. He doesn't do anything. He takes blood, which I can go in and do on my own time. And he types in 3 prescriptions to refill. He asks me how I'm doing, listens to my heart. He's really not paying attention. So he can check the box and then charge me money. So something that could be done literally, I could go to his office, get my blood drawn, 20 minutes. By the time I have my call with him, he can have the results. He can say, great, no change, here's your prescriptions. And it would be so much easier this way. You know, people are, you know, I was reading about, you know, this whole thing about back to the office. And people, you know, I think really recognize how much time was wasted driving back and forth, how much time you're stuck in traffic. You know, with VAB, the Virtual Advisory Board, another group I'm in, there was a discussion about, you know, is everybody getting together for board meetings like they used to, all the travel? And it seems like a lot of boards have gone hybrid, you know, where they might get together face to face fewer times, but otherwise do it this way because it can be just as effective.
You know, I was just yesterday, I was assigned to an advisory board in the US, a project related to healthcare generally, before 3020.org. So I'm a member of the advisory board, and I will, my task is generally the circular economy in the healthcare and the waste prevention and similar stuff. So I'm really looking forward And thank you for the information that the healthcare is very similar to here, that the doctors behave the same, which means generally there is nothing wrong with the healthcare. There is even nothing wrong with the doctor. There is wrong with the system and with the understanding of the system itself. Because you know what I see, for example, you mentioned COVID. I don't know how it was in the US, but my daughter is in the last grade in the school generally, and they have to switch from one day to another to virtual. It was almost everywhere. But the biggest issue was that the teachers did not ask the students how to use the virtual world. Because for the students, it was already before COVID, it was common to speak online and so on to discuss, but some of the teachers did not learn it in 2 years. So I saw some of the lessons, it was really crazy. The teacher cannot use the camera, she cannot use nothing at all. That was so horrible. And then at the end of the year, the students have better grades because the teachers cannot say, we are not being able to teach them. So it was so crazy. And this is about the setup of the balance, about the understanding. This is why I call these types waste. You know, before not so many speaks about waste. And if you speak about waste, you just have the image of the trash somewhere. No. 5 categories of waste: physical, social, urban, process, and wasting of time. Because they are omnipresent in our life. And if we will be able to understand them, to recognize them, then we can prevent them to happen. You know, in Czech Republic, there are only 3 groups of people who can have on the car this blue light when they're this, I don't know how it's called in the US, the siren. So if you ride, and so they are healthcare, so ambulances, there is police, there are firefighters, so sorry, there are 4 groups. And the 4th group are politicians. And all the time you see a blue light on a black car, which is somebody from the politics going somewhere. And he needs to be so urgently to be there to say to speak 5 minutes and leave for next appointment. But these people are not able to manage their own time. How they can manage our time and our lives? So we have to recognize it first. I know that you, same as me, we change first before asking someone else to change. And just now, just few minutes before our talk, I received from one of my network member an article that the European Commission would like to penalize the greenwashing. Nothing against. The only issue is that the biggest pretender using the greenwashing is the European Commission itself. United Nations, sorry, it is so. You know, the head of United Nations,
the Secretary General.
I just forgot his name. I'm writing him frequently. He's never replying. But he fly all around the globe speaking about carbon emission. He used private jet of United Nations. They have few of those. Just deliver some few words, eat and drink and leave for next destination. What is sustainable about this? Only his salary. So it's completely wrong. So the setup is wrong. And when I was speaking with my granddad, and I said, you know, I think that United Nations are not delivering what they promised, why they have been established. He said, Michael, sorry. He was 22 when United Nations has been established. And he said, Michael, the second year after establishing, it did not fulfill what they said. They broke for the first time their own rules. And this is the issue. This is the issue. This is a huge wasting of time. We have introduced carbon emission trading. It was 1992, and then 1998, it was in Sao Paulo, I think it was generally official. We wasted so much time. And last year in December, for the first time, someone at United Nations connected to banking and finances said, you know, we will probably not accept carbon emissions anymore, the credits, because they have nothing to do with ecology. They are just financial tool.
Sure.
In Europe, we call it indulgences in the Middle Ages. You pay indulgences to the churches and you can go and kill anyone because you prepaid to be in heaven. That's exactly what carbon emission trading means. So we are wasting 40 years, even more, following wrong concepts. And that must end.
It's, we get in our own way. And, you know, what I've done a lot of work over time around corporate performance management and metrics. And I did work with a telecom company that is now global. And when we started, they spent one day a month bringing all their senior leaders together to look at 300 metrics because they were all important. Well, in reality, they weren't all important, number one. Two, everybody in the room didn't need to see everything that was shared. Certain things were only relevant for some people. And there was stuff that had been measured because it had been handed down, literally, generation to generation. You know, my boss measured this, and his boss measured this, so I have to measure this. And I would say, so if you get the information, does it change a decision? Do you do something? Does it pass the so what test? And all of a sudden they're like, no, not really. You know, I use a clip in my presentation where I'm talking about accountable collaborators, and it's a clip from the US women's soccer team. And it shows how the agility, how they have to adapt, how the players move around, different people have different roles. It works seamlessly. And when they score the goal, it's not the person going like this. It's the team that comes together and celebrates. And I said, it's because it's outcome focused. One goal, win the game, score. I said, there's no point in measuring how much time I or you have the ball. There's no point measuring, I can kick it farther than you. And, you know, you could go on and on that people spend time measuring things that are not necessarily related to the outcome or that drive perverse behavior, not in the right direction. And, you know, you talk about, you know, the carbon accounting. If it doesn't drive the behavior change, then, you know, nothing's really, you know, nothing's happening.
It is. I like the example you gave because it's generally exactly what you described. And there is one more topic which you did not mention, but I'm sure it's part of your lectures. One of the issue in a company is usually that the aim of one is completely different than the aim of the other. Frequently, they are in a very opposite direction. I am the production manager. You are just a supplier. I am supplier, but you are logistic guy. They have completely different image. So generally, they lost the ability to understand the complex picture. And unfortunately, many general managers are there not to align this. They just report to someone else, to investors or to someone else. So they have, again, their own small box in which they are hidden. You know, it's a long time ago, maybe 10 years ago. I stand on a platform, on a conference. I have a speech, and during that speech, I spoke about that I am the out-of-box thinker. And I asked the audience, please raise your hand up, who is the out-of-box thinker? At this moment, every single hand rise up. And I said, sorry, yeah, okay. So I don't see even the box. And at that day, I started to call myself under the carpet looker, because there was only one under the carpet looker in the room, and it was me. Because, you know, if you would like to hide something, you swipe it under the carpet, so it's not visible. But if you just bend your back, turn the corner of the carpet and you look under it, you will see such treasures which you will never expect to see. There's a money, there are diamonds, there is everything. There is even the time which is hidden. So since that moment, I am the under the carpet looker. And it's nice. Still, I am the only one in the world. And it's quite nice. But they did understood when I told them, they did understood. And the second example was great. It was in Riga, I think, in Latvia, and another business conference. And I started with few questions, and I asked the manager. I was not the first one, so I was some speaker in the line. And I asked him, who has a mobile phone? Every hands up. Who has a tablet? Few go down. Who has a notebook? Again, a smartwatch. And the last question, who of you have time? And not a single hand rise up. But I know the next 15 minutes, they listen very carefully what I have to say. Because they have everything, and at the same time, they have nothing.
Yeah.
And it is important to understand.
Well, so a couple of things that were interesting here. You know, one, you know, asking everybody, you know, being out of, whether or not they're being an out of the box thinker. So I saw, I don't know, it was in a cartoon or something, but the leader says, who wants things to change? All the hands go up. You know, who thinks we need to change? Hands go up. Who wants to change themselves?
We don't need it. We don't need to, because we are so good. We don't need. This is the first thought in the heads of the people.
Well, I mean, when you say you need to change, three of the fingers are pointing back at you. You know, the other part of this. So two things. I was going to be presenting to a finance executives roundtable. You know, it's a small group. It's going to be a webinar, and I was going over the presentation, and the person said, "Oh, you know, you're talking about all this stuff at an organizational level. We should just focus on finance." And because they can't control everything. And I said, wait a minute. I look at this from a dual citizenship standpoint. So first of all, if all I do is focus on finance, I'm reinforcing the silo. I don't want to reinforce the silo. It's not about finance for finance. I said, it's about the organization, it's about the company. So I, as a finance leader, am a citizen of the company first. I'm a citizen of finance second. It doesn't make any sense to do something to make our department look good if it doesn't help what we as an organization are trying to do. And part of the problem in a lot of functions is they're so focused on themselves that they're not looking at the rest. And that's where the breakdowns are. I mean, you made the comment, you know, you asked everybody where they were going. And you get different directions. I go around, I say to the CEO, so tell me about your strategy. And they tell me, what they're trying to do, what's important, often without much detail. But then I say to them, so does everybody on the leadership team agree and have the same understanding? And this is absolutely, we talk about this. I go around and ask the other leaders, so tell me about your strategy. What does this mean to you? And usually, maybe there's 60% agreement, 65 if we're lucky. And then there are groups of issues that have to be discussed because people are talking to me, but they're not talking to each other, or they're having one-off conversations. And it's facilitating those discussions, making it safe to have those discussions. Then you can start to get stuff done. That's, you talked about stuff under the rug. That's what's going on under the rug.
And it's not just what you just described is everywhere. No matter which industry you speak, no matter which level of people you speak, we establish silos. And generally, as I go deeper in these, I realize that they are not just the silos like this, they are silos like this. And if you just turn the word silo and you switch it for the word bar, so we put ourselves behind the bars. We are like the animals in a zoo, but we are the animals. Or we are in a prison because bars are in prison. And it's really so dense, the grid is so dense that we even don't see outside. So we are thinking that we are free, but in fact, we are behind the wall of bars and we don't see it. And this is partly of the professional blindness, partly of understanding, but majority of my projects, and this is very similar to you, what you just described, the people ask me, Mr. Rada, can you come and help us with logistics or help us with waste prevention or whatever? 99% of the companies does not have problem with logistics or waste. They have problem with communication because they don't understand the same. They use different terms. And what is even, I don't know whether you do it in the US, but I, time to time, have to establish a vocabularies between two Czech-speaking people, establish a vocabulary for them to understand each other. One great example, very simple one, is euro. If I say euro, you will probably imagine currency. But if you are in logistics, we have the same name. Euro is euro pallet. It's one wooden pallet, 80 by 120 centimeters. It's
sure.
Generally the biggest European standard for packaging, this size. In the US, you have slightly different, but we have this one. And I was witness of a discussion between two people, both speaking about euro, but both, and two colleagues sitting next to each other, but both speaking about something completely different. And they agree to each other. They say they do not complain. They agree, but completely this way.
Right. That's interesting. And you talk about being, behind bars. And you talk about the zoo. The animals are looking at it and saying the humans are behind bars.
Yes.
There are a lot. Well, sometimes there are physical barriers. Sometimes we put up our own mental barriers. And I think part of this, people talk about psychological safety. Unless you make it safe, unless you lead from a listening standpoint. Yes, I'll go back to my German friend, the one with the 7-minute break. And we had the conversation with him that your leadership team is not on the same page. we did this work with them. We got everybody going in the right direction. And we came back a year later to check. And they're like, no, this issue, that issue. So we went up to him and said this, and he said, no. We are all in agreement. I'll show you. So we're back in the meeting. It's kind of like a U. And the turbulent leader says, our consultants don't think we are in agreement. I told them that we are on the same page with our strategy. I'm going to take a vote. We're going to go around the room and I'm going to ask you, are we on the same page? It was like one of the old Politburo meetings. Everybody was in agreement. And he says to us, see, I told you. And we kind of rolled our eyes and like, we'll continue this conversation. But in that type of environment, it was dangerous to speak your mind. And that puts it back under the covers again.
And we touch the politics slightly during our conversation. And there is one special topic. We speak about that there are different interests of different parties, departments, people in a company. But you know how we set up the politics? We set up right and left, which have very opposite interests. And we try to pretend that this is a government which has one interest. We just had a big discussion yesterday. Our government in Czech Republic proposed 55 points of improving Czech economy. So majority of the points is we will increase duties and change something. So a lot of things, some of them reasonable, some of them not, but whatever. Of course, the opposition says everything is wrong. They said, no, everything is right. And the citizen says, okay, so what I should take? But what I say, I'm missing one point. There was not a single word about preventing the waste, which generated a big loss to happen. They did not speak that they will change. They speak about that the citizens must change and the companies must change, but there was not a single mention that the politics and politicians will change. But I don't know who set it up. So we have right and left and consider that we are one. That's not true. In a human body, it is true. We have this head which manage both hands. If something is wrong with the brain, one hand will probably do something wrong. But if the head is right, but they split the head into two halves or even more halves called political parties. And in a company, it can be departments. And we expect they work the same. No, it's not true. This is why I love so that, from the very beginning when I started to build Weiser's World, the Weiser's World was the image which I had. That was the aim. But during the time, I have learned that it is generally the most important part. Because if I speak about Weiser's World, what you will imagine, clean water, which you can drink without any harm, you can swim inside, enjoy clean air, which you can breathe without a face mask, and again, enjoy it. And smiling faces of people which you love around you. Whether there is a new car, new company, whatever, it's not important, but these three will be all the time there. And this is what put the people so strong together, that without any financial support, investment, or whatever, we are in 111 countries implementing the same principles. And the great part about, not a single politician will tell you, Jay, you have to waste, because she or he will look stupid. And that's so great, because they cannot stop us, but it was, I don't believe in coincidence. I think it was evolution. So I spent a lot of time before as an employee, as a manager, and so on. And you need to grow up. But at the same time, I have here a package for my flute, which I made when I was 4, and I made it exactly the way how I will make it up today from some obsolete materials, and I saw it and so on, and it's 40 years old. So I was probably, and I think that we have it inside. We have the right mindset. We have the meaningfulness of our life inside from the moment of our birth. I think that every single person has some goal, some aim, which we are born with. But we need a lot of time, and some of us never reach it, never understand it. But if we will be able, even through such a communication, discussion, helping clients, companies, politicians, whomever, then we will find this meaningfulness much more faster. And this wasteless world is one of the meaningful things which the people do understand. They don't do it for me. They do it for them and for their own children. And that's the big difference. Because I do it for 10 years and not a single company joined me because of sustainability or environment. Every company did it because they can increase their profit. It's fine. There is nothing wrong about profit. You know it. Unfortunately, we are living in an economy where profit must be there because otherwise you will not survive as a company. But the profit must be there without damaging someone else or something else. And that's a big difference. But the companies join me because they would like to be more profitable. And it's so simple. They generate waste or profit. You cannot generate both.
Well, and the thing too, I'll use a little different language. Instead of profit, I like to talk about value. Now, because, you know, when people talk about profit, make a generalization. Profit to me is more short term. What did I make this quarter? What did I make this year? What did I make this week? Value is something longer term. You know, that in fact, value applies to all of your stakeholders. Value is the result. Value is the outcome that you're providing to someone. So if I can provide more value to my customers, that connects to profit. If I'm wasting my customers' time, if I'm providing them with underperforming products, then I'm not going to be profitable. If I'm providing value to my employees, whether that be in terms that they feel engaged, they feel involved, they feel they have some sense of, you know, agency, they're being looked out for, if they're getting value in multiple ways, not just money, then they're going to be engaged, they're going to be more productive, they're going to serve the customer better, they're going to innovate, and that creates value. Value in the community, value to customers, value in the ecosystem. And no, please.
May I ask you one question?
Sure.
When I take Czech words for the same price and value, okay, we have 2 words as well. The price is something which is very specific. People understand that it's money, so it's specific. It's something which generally you can touch in some way. But if you speak about value, it's something more theoretical. People, at least in the understanding of the word in Czech language. So value, it's in Czech hodnota, and hodnota is something which is, let's say, theoretical something somewhere, hard to touch. But this is why maybe time to time I use maybe wrong words translated into English, because I would like to push the understanding which we have. And sometimes it's good that it's break up the silo of the language in a way to look at it a different way. You know, I have learned, for example, that there was in Old English, really Old English, there was a word waster. And waster was someone who really wasted a lot of things. So he was a wasteful, we can say. But then somewhere around 16 whatever century, the waster became a man who killed the soldiers on the battlefield, the last shot, let's say. It was not shot, of course. So it was someone who ended the life of the suffering, you can say. And that was the waster. But in a new English, it's generally the word does not exist anymore, or is not so frequently used. It's quite interesting. And it is very interesting how we use the language, because if you speak about the German friend, it was exactly that is, if you go to a political party or discussion, everyone raises the hands up. If you go to China and the party says, everyone will follow. The same will be in Japan. Everyone will follow. But it will be not in a, let's say, a little bit more chaotic countries like East European, like my country. But still, if you will be in the party and you would like to stay in the party, you have to raise your hand up and agree. And that's wrong.
Yep. No, I agree. And the thing, just going back to value versus profit, there's this whole thing, instead of just talking about shareholder value, talking about stakeholder value. And that's something that, companies are wrestling with, leadership teams are wrestling with. And I kind of go back, it's not either or, it's both. You're not going to have stakeholder value if you don't have profit. But profit by itself does not necessarily create stakeholder value. And there was something, God, it was a conference or a webinar I was listening to on governance. And they had one of the judges. So a lot of companies incorporate in Delaware or different places that are more favorable. So this was a judge from one of those courts, and they were asked, question essentially was, all the stuff around environment and sustainability and social justice. How does the court look at that? Is that in the shareholders' best interest? And he responded and said, the fiduciary responsibility is the creation of long-term shareholder value. You can't get that in a society that's not functioning, in a world that no longer works, that's no longer safe. You get the message. And it's the short-term thinking, which I guess goes back to time, and not necessarily thinking about, the longer term. And, you and I, as much as we'd like to, we're not going to change the world, but if we can change the thinking a little bit, and people get more perspective.
For me, I never use the words stakeholder or shareholder. Because these words came from economy, and I never studied economy. So I just, even right now, I have to check again the meaning, the translation of the words. I know a lot of people use these. I do not, because for me, they are, let's say, the words which are not standard in my vocabulary.
Sure.
So I do not use green or sustainability. I very rarely use these words. Because I think that, again, it's one of the topics which the people do not understand. If you speak about sustainability, sustainable development, what does it mean? For many companies, banks, or whoever, does it mean we will have more and more profit permanently? It has nothing to do with the sustainability. If you speak with someone from the environmental aspect, they will speak about protection of nature and so on. But I think that we make our life hard by inventing terms which can be explained this way or the other way, and both are right. You know, the great about nature, among other things, nature grows in silence. It does not need to speak. I know that the birds are singing, and I know that plants are communicating, but in fact, it's not a unique language. It's maybe energy, or I don't know how to call it. But one of the advantages of nature is that they do not do the same like us. You know, the biggest tree or the fastest growing tree will not be the one which survives. And we are aiming for more as a criteria of success. And it's completely opposite. So this is why for me, nature is the role model of all what I do of Industry 5.0. It's only this one, because it's great that it gives the freedom to the one leaf, whether it fall on the right or on the left, whether it will be eaten by someone or become soil, it does not matter. Some people told me, but I say all the time that nature does not waste. And some people reply, that's not true. The tree leaves are the waste. No, it's a word which we invented to name something which we do not like, but it does not waste. Nature, it is not. And this is why we have to learn to utilize the existing resources which we have. I think that through the stakeholder and shareholder, we have created another bar, another silo, because dividing it, you know, these silos are very strong. And your example about the general manager, the German one, and the others, that's exactly the silo, which is this way. This is the horizontal silo. He is the boss. I cannot say anything against. In the Japanese company, it was so very, very strong, which I was not happy about.
Well, so here's a thought. I agree with what you're saying with nature. It's an organic model. It's an ecosystem, how everything flows together. That's kind of out here for some people. And they're here. This is very holistic, is very systems thinking. I wonder, the idea that I think, at least from what I've read around stakeholders, is kind of the bridge, because if people can start to think about something other than shareholders and can think about a stakeholder, who else has an interest in this? Who else contributes to the success of this? And recognizing, and it goes back to both and thinking, it goes back to a growth mindset. Is it a zero-sum game where the stakeholders fight each other for their piece of the pie? Or is it the stakeholders can work together and grow the pie, or recognize that if there are winners and losers, that won't last very long in the long term, because nothing's being built. It's just being fought over. Now, some people, listen to this, oh, that's theoretical, But the thing is it's getting beyond that, monolithic one way of thinking. Because please.
May I ask you one question? which words you will use instead of stakeholder and or shareholder. If these words do not exist, but you would like to express the same meaning, which word will you use?
Well, I mean, you can start to call them out. There's
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know.
so I it wouldn't be one word. It would be customers, employees, people who you work with, partners, suppliers.
But all these are somehow specific. The stakeholder and shareholder should be the word above, so this unifying term. But I think that there must be another unifying term for them. And I don't know the answer, to be honest, but I think that this may be one of the issues why many people, if they are listening, they do not understand really, you know. And if I face this, I develop the word. So simple. I am crazy guy. So, you know, if there is a word which is not existing, I invent it. And it's great. Industry 5.0, I was the first one in the world. So it's nice. Karel Čapek, robot. It was a guy sitting 75 kilometers from here, needed something to describe an artificial human-like person. So he find out, he used, generally the word robot is connected to my language, you know, or to old languages which we are here. Robota was another word for work. So you need a robot is someone who do work.
Right.
So this was his connection, probably how he came to this word. And today we use robots for work. So you know, we are coming back 101 years back, and we are using exactly the same idea. But for me, it will be very interesting to continue and to, if we will stream this, to let the people think about it, to help us to find the word. Because I think if we will find it, same as wasteless word, if we will find it, maybe we will open the door, or we will find a way to kick the critical silos down and unify the people.
Well, I mean,
at least I have this.
The thing, it obviously it takes a little more creativity, but I think it's the ecosystem, and that ecosystem that can be. So I'm going to go back to something I posted about last night. That ecosystem grows, or it can be something that wastes away. If you only focus on one part of the ecosystem, it's going to waste away. If you consider all aspects of the ecosystem, it has an opportunity to grow. And, you know, it's almost like, was it the Russian dolls? You open up, there's another one, and there's another one, and another one. Is your ecosystem is part of a larger ecosystem, which is part of a larger ecosystem. And what happens in your ecosystem affects out. And what happens out reflects in. And it's breaking away from, you know, mechanistic, linear thinking. And that's a change. I mean, I think a lot of folks are, you know, if I do this, this will happen. If I do that, well, no, not anymore, because of all these other factors in the ecosystem that requires a different level of thinking. In an ecosystem, relationships are multidimensional. They're not linear. If you apply, if you can only think linear, you're not, that doesn't work so well in an ecosystem. And I mean, it goes back to something, don't look at yourself in a vacuum. Don't look at an individual risk, because there's a bunch of them operating at the same time. So I think that starts to get at it. Now, the thing is, I'll go back to something, a minute to think. You and I have that luxury. But if everybody took a little bit of time to do that, and it goes back, I don't know where I read it, but when people say, I don't have time, I can't do that. One, it's not that you don't have time, it's that you didn't make time. It's a choice. Whether you do that reactively or intentionally. And some of these things, when you talk about waste, part of it is making it explicit so people see it. Because if they don't see it, then it's not something that they can address.
This is why one of the strongest tools which we use on the construction side of Wasteless World is the power of touch. You don't only see it, you can touch it, because even the touch is much stronger and long-lasting memory. According to scientists, generally, the touch is the longest memory which is the touch. You see this? It's cable,
Yeah.
a really, really strong one. Waste. Filled with copper, it's waste. Because you don't understand the true value. But if you can touch it, if I put number above it, how much money it can cost, immediately you change the way how you understand what it is. And this is why we all the time we try really power of touch in every single project, to rebuild something, to create something, to not only the Excel sheet or a presentation, but really something which you can touch. And you do remember the touch of your mother or father. You will remember all your life, or the grandfather. You will never lose this. And this is exactly what we have to create, because touch with nature. Some people told me, I do remember the first moment when I put my hands in the soil, and it brings me back to the earth. And it's so interesting. So there are different things for different people works well, but all the time I have the power of touch there, because it is something which changed the people, really, the understanding. And this is what the politicians do not have. What you can, how you can touch the political decision, how you can, you cannot. Then there are much more aspects. It doesn't matter. But in a standard business life, in our standard lives, we have permanently the power of touch. We just do not understand. But if you will understand, and maybe if we name it right, the stakeholder and shareholder will receive this power of touch in some way. And that will be great. Sorry. Sorry.
Let you.
Thank you.
It's interesting. What I wrote down is, how can you make it touchable? Now, touchable can come in many, many forms. It can be physical. I can hold it. Touch is also about making it relatable. And I was talking about this psychological safety, curiosity. I was talking about being an experienced learner. And if you don't have the right environment, a lot of times you don't get the news you need to hear. You don't get the information you need to know because it's not safe. And I said, I had a client and I walked through a particular situation and somebody was afraid to bring up information in a meeting. Either, I don't know if it was afraid that they were going to get in trouble or afraid because they didn't want to be embarrassed and face up to something. And after we finally had the discussion and got others engaged, so they understood it wasn't my problem, it was our problem. And the CEO said, there's nothing worse than bad news late. And he said, I would rather know something and have a chance to fix it. But if it's too late, that's bad. And I said that this happened to be a group of human resource leaders. Then if your CEO says to you, I'm really upset, I don't know why I didn't know this. And I said, I would say, look in the mirror first and say, what did I do to create this? So then somebody said back to me, I have a CEO who thinks they always have to be right. They always have to have the answer. Now, you can't go to that person head on because, you're just going to fight. You're going to, becomes a war. I said, what you need to do, and now I would say you need to make it relatable, touchable. I didn't apply those words at the time. Person, what would you do? I said, if I was talking to the CEO, I'd say, engage with me for a minute. Can you give me an example from your own life, whether, with your wife, your kids, your family, your friends, where you found something out late? Now that you have that in mind, what was the impact of finding it out late? What could you have done differently if you found out about it early? How would you have felt differently? And once it becomes relatable or touchable, now their mind is open. And I can say, so has this ever happened in the office? Has this ever happened with a supplier or a partner or an employee, whatever it happens to be? Whereas if I went at it head on and said, you're not making it a safe environment, they're going to get defensive. And we're never going to have the discussion we need to have. So, your point about touchable, relatable, I guess, and how do you break it down? I guess in some cases it's simplified without being simple.
And you just name it, I have 2 days ago, I was discussing with Bill McLean. Generally, every Wednesday we are having a discussion. And we spoke about the price of the price. But at the end, we came to ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, and said, and similar topics. And I realized that generally ChatGPT is sold so well to the people worldwide and developing so, let's call it so well. I don't think it's a well development, but because it can solve, it can help to achieve more, to write more code, to make more pictures, to make longer text, more, let's call it more. And this is the biggest risk. Because, you know, hunting for more, as I call it, deliver the society, the global society to the current situation, which is not sustainable at all because we are exploiting resources, people, everything around us. So why should we teach the artificial intelligence, whatever name it has, Bing or I don't care, ChatGPT? Why should we teach it that this is the right way to do things? So we are looking for tools to make things more complicated. You know, how many pages or how many books have the US legislation? Billion, every year, thousands come new. You know, I spent 8 years to write one page. One, waste prevention legislation. And I spent 8 years because my intention was to, and here I came to your work, to simplify it or to make it understandable. I don't use the word simplified, to make it understandable to everyone without need of any translation, any explanation. You put it on a wall in your language and you will understand what I mean. And this is why it took me 8 years. In the meantime, I wrote over 5,000 articles and published. But this one page, 8 years. And this is exactly what we generally, if we would like to change the negative development, which is right now indicated with the development of artificial intelligence and ChatGPT and similar tools, we have to explain that it is not that we have developed ChatGPT not to have more, but to simplify the things. And this is not the way how it is being done. It's a very opposite. And I mentioned to you last time, I think, that we have in Czech, we have a very interesting saying that fire is a great servant, but a very bad master. And we are living right now in an age when we are not speaking about fire, but about data, technology, and power. I mean, electric power. They can be great servant and tool, but there will be very, very bad master. So we have still time to stop it, but we have to change the way we are thinking.
Well, it's if I go back to some of my balanced scorecard work, and we would talk about involving more people. More does not mean you can abdicate responsibility. You might have people helping you, but you still have to be involved. You know, it's kind of like the internet and social media. It can be very, very helpful, used in the right way. Or it can be a big time waste. It depends how it's used. It depends, with ChatGPT, and I'm not as up to date as I should be. And I've been cautioned. I had a colleague who told me he had a particular prompt and asked for something. And it was about creating a paper or an article on a particular topic with citations and so on. And he said, when he went through it and he checked the citations and the people, some of them didn't exist. So you have to be aware of that. I went in because I was just to spur some of my thinking. And I was asking it to define the 5 leadership superpowers, and I had the term in quotes, and it came back with a bunch of random stuff. I then posed the question and said, tell me about the 5 leadership superpowers developed by Weiser. It went from this to this. And it was able to consolidate. And I went through some of my thinking. So I might have said one thing in one article, something someplace else. It helped bring that together. Then I could say, so how would this apply to a CFO? And provide me with actionable recommendations. Then it generated something much more specific, using my words in large part. So it helped me tie some things together. Now, it also said some things that I would not have said. So it's a tool, to your point. If I allow it to be the master, that's risky.
I don't use those. I don't use in a way intentionally using. Of course, I'm asking Google for answers, but I don't use this advanced, let's say, this advanced technologies to do the work which I should do. I write it longer, I spend more time, but I do it. And for me, when I prepare, for example, a presentation, it's quite interesting. It must be, for me, when I read it, if I present it to myself in a training form, if it's not emotional for me, it's wrong.
Sure.
And I have to do it again and again and again. And sometimes it's just enough to switch the slides and will be enough. But I will try to find it and send it to you. I have an interesting discussion with guys who are really in artificial intelligence deep. So in Czech Republic, they are quite good guys who even are on US universities delivering speeches and so on. So they are really good. And I sent to one of those guys one of my keynotes, which you receive as well. And he said, Michael, I gave it he said, I gave it to my artificial intelligence to analyze it. And he sent me the reply, and it was very interesting, and I will find it and send it to you. To make it short, because I cannot say exactly what was that. The artificial intelligence started with, this guy is crazy. And the end was, but you should listen to him. Because he is delivering and he is speaking what will really be there, because he is doing it in a real life. He's not a theoretical guy. He's not an academician. No, he's doing everything what he say, and it was somehow written there. What he said, he did already. And it was so interesting for me because, I never had a possibility to talk to artificial intelligence. But at the same time, I know that if you will start to use it, it's so convenient that it will be very hard to end it. And I had a great experience. When I was 48, I realized I was addicted to my smartphone because there was an update of Android, and this Android told me how many times I swiped to open it. It was 357 times a day. It's addiction. And I recognized it immediately. When I saw the number, I said, Michael, you are addicted. You have to do something with it. And I went to my cupboard and I said, I took this lady out and I said to me, if I will be able to switch it on after 10 years in a box, I will use it for 3 months to get rid of the addiction. It was possible. I use it. And this Nokia 3310i generally was able, or no, 6110 I was able to recognize what made me addicted after 2 months. Since then, I don't call this Nokia dumb phone, I call it a wise phone. This phone is smart, but Nokia is wise. And what makes me addicted, and if anybody will be listening to this, try it. It's the notifications. Switch all notifications off, except of standard call, not social media, called standard phone call and standard SMS message. Switch everything off, and you have to do one by one. There is no feature to do all if you do not switch to flight mode, which you do not want, of course, because you need to be reached. If everyone who tested come back to me and said, Michael or Mr. Rada, I found so much time, which I never expected to have. And I did exactly the same, because it is me who decide when the phone will be picked up by my hand.
Sure.
It's not the phone which tells me, pick me up. No, it's me. So we are back to the original discussion, and it was really a great discussion again.
It's again, it goes back to how it's used and what it's used for. It can be a great tool. Oh, that's what I was going to say. I forget where I was writing this, but it's essentially, oh, that's what it was. I'm part of this group, COO Forum. So it's a group of chief operating officers in the U.S., kind of like a membership group. And the question that was posed was, how are you using AI, ChatGPT, other tools in your work? And there were some tech companies, I'm using it to do graphics, I'm using it to do analysis, so on and so forth. And I said, for me, it's a research assistant. So it can help me find some things quicker. I still have to use my judgment. I still have to use my words. I still have to process it, because otherwise it's like ripping out a page from an encyclopedia. And I have to determine relevance. Now, what's interesting in part of this has been my own lack of a system, is I've written a lot of stuff. I've got it saved in too many places. I can't go back. Like, if you have the URL for a particular LinkedIn post, you can find it. But if you try and search for it, I mean, you literally have to keep on scrolling and scrolling, and it only goes back so far. So what I liked is that when I wasn't using ChatGPT 3, I was using the newer version, which comes up to the current time. And the value I found is how it pulled things together and integrated in a way that I'm like, oh yeah, I said that before, and here's where I said it. It helped me. In that way, it can be an assistant. But I agree with you, it shouldn't be the boss.
And it is very sensitive topic. So it's like the edge of a knife, and it's really because of this convenience of this way of working. I announced today in the morning that I become this advisory board member. In 2 hours, I received 5,000 congratulations from the members. I have 26,000 members in my network, 5,000. And I am used to answer every single one. So if there will be a tool and I will use it, it will be much more convenient. But if I do it one by one, I see who was calling, and you do remember these big books of business cards. You never get this feeling on your digital stuff, on your digital itinerary or whatever. You just list and you see, okay, she has died already, he has changed, and so it's quite interesting. It's like the memory. For me, I have here 30 years of business cards, and it's very interesting. So I am doing things harder. I love to do it harder. I know I will not do so much, but the result, which will be for me much more impactful. But I do understand fully why the people use it. And generally, before artificial intelligence, there was God, and there was a religion, and so on. It was exactly the same. You know, what is said? What is omnipresent? Internet and data are omnipresent. It is everywhere, yes. If you have a connection, it's with you. So there is so many similarities. And there is one interesting topic. You know, I love to read science fiction books, Jules Verne and many others. And I have here books which predicted Chinese in Europe, 1924. Czech author never wrote anything else, but he is so accurate that it's unbelievable. And what is interesting, in all these books, there are cars, flying cars, planes, whatever. But not a single one was internet. And this is so interesting. I think that these people travel in time. I was traveling in time myself to the future. Up to 1 year ahead. I was really 1 year ahead. I saw what is coming. And it's not so difficult. It's not so difficult. You just have to be patient and go step by step, then you can reach it. What was interesting, that going to the future helped me to understand the present time. And if these people like Jules Verne and the others, Isaac Asimov, being time traveler, why they did not wrote about internet? It's impossible to be in today's time and not to meet it. It's impossible. So there are only two possible reasons. First, they saw that it's so dangerous that they didn't write about it, that it will come. And the second, I cannot say, but I am sure there is a second reason as well.
You know, it's change. So I'll tell you a quick story, and that is, so I remember my grandmother. She was born in 1909. She passed away in 1996. And I remember thinking during, her last few years, the amazing amount of change that she had witnessed, from, the invention of cars, phones, TVs. She was hearing impaired, how the hearing technology had changed. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, look at how much she has witnessed. And I thought to myself, and this is probably like 1992-ish, and I thought to myself, I will never experience that amount of change as she has. Well,
you was wrong.
I was wrong in so many different ways. Now, having said that, there's also an awful lot that has not changed, that I learned from her, and that she learned from her parents, in terms of values, in terms of principles. That there's a lot of core things And there's a story, another story, I think she told me this. So present day, daughter's with her mother and they're cooking a roast. The mother cuts off the ends of the roast, puts it in the pan, does all the garnishing, the spices, the vegetables, and the little girl saying, "Mom, why are you cutting off the ends of the roast?" And she said, "Well, that's what grandma did all the time when I was growing up. So I guess it tastes better." And it's not making sense to the girl. They cook the roast. Grandmother comes over for dinner. Grandma, Mom says you cut off the ends of the roast because it tastes better. And the grandmother starts laughing. And she says, "No, no, no. We had a small oven. That was the only way it would fit."
It's a great story.
So sometimes tradition is good. Sometimes we make assumptions that have no truth.
We go, and we discussed it last time, I think. For me and for Industry 5.0, we try to find out the roots, follow the roots, because it is so important. And especially if you go back on the route, you will find out that you are deeper and deeper in time. You find out that the people has been much more efficient than us, because if they built a pyramid or a castle, they have only one trial. They do not have 20, 50, or to repeat it, or digital models or digital twin. No, they have only one trial. If they didn't succeed, they have been dead. So their efficiency was much more higher. If you imagine that they will have the technology which we have, we will be already traveling in the space probably. It will be a common thing, but they did not. And still, we are living in the houses. I'm sitting right now in a house which was built 1889. And it's great, strong. Here are 30 companies inside. It's really great. And I was in several projects related to smart cities. And I surprise all the time the organizer, and so I surprise them with an information that smart cities already exist for a long time in many places, all over the globe, in almost every city. Because smart city is a city which fully comply with the needs of those who are living in them. Is it so? You know what is the name of a smart city in your own city? Cemetery.
Say it again.
Cemetery.
Symmetry.
Cemetery. Because this is a city built for the needs of people who are there.
Good luck.
But it is so. So it's just the understanding. And I love the example about cutting the pieces because it was too small. It's a really, really great story. So thank you for sharing.
Well, I mean, it's something that makes it relatable, because I can tell a story like that and then say, where in your company are you cutting off the ends of the roast? Because of, at some point there was a reason, but that reason no longer exists. So I know we're up on time. I can keep on going. Now, I don't know, I think we've got some nuggets in the recording. What I like to do, there were two things, I was hoping to talk about it, and things don't always, go the way you were thinking. But I'm curious about a couple of things. So one, I sent you a number of links on some of my content. So I'd like to get, kind of your thinking around the superpowers, and how that ties to some of the waste discussion. And it was interesting, literally last night, as I was going through the notes from our call, and what you talked about, upcycling, and downcycling. I have my notes. And then you had regenerative design. And I wrote, as I was reading it, regenerative organization, ? And I'm thinking to myself, because I talk about having an approach that gets you sustainable results. It's not just a one-time thing. Because if you keep on applying the superpowers, they're adaptive and they help you make decisions and think about things. It's not time specific, it's not industry specific, it's not function specific. It's whether you call it a mindset. I coined the term think set. And I haven't used it, but the thing is, mindset is, how do you look at the world? And I think about the superpowers as I've said think set, because it's how you think about the world and how you take in that information. And each one of the superpowers requires some different thinking. But then I'm thinking to myself, regenerative organization, God, that'd be really cool if I was the first one. So I did a search. I'm going to share my screen for a minute.
Okay. 60th. No, it's 11 billions, millions, whatever, a lot of. Try to put it in the
Quotes.
Yeah, try to put it in the quotes, because right now, if you put it without quotes, it search for separate words. So it does not search for the total name. Try to put it in the Google search in the quotes. This is all the time needed when you would like to find out the entire sentence, okay? So it was 11, you see? That's big difference.
So it's interesting. There's this guy who he's a professor somewhere in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about regenerative leaders. He talks about community. So, it's about sustainability. He talks about it in the context of education. I haven't dug into this enough, but it didn't appear to be something that is widely out there. Mm-hmm. But there were some interesting references, and it goes back to being I can't think of the word, more organic, more of an ecosystem, regenerative versus something that's more destructive. But I think if you think about it, as I started thinking about it in terms of, this talks about what what can a regenerative organization do, but it doesn't necessarily talk about how to be regenerative.
Yeah.
Which I think the superpowers starts to get at some of that in some of your concepts around upcycling. Because I was thinking again, and this goes back to you call it social waste. I wrote social or organizational waste, or that it kind of goes back to, I talk about unlocked potential, unleashing the potential of the organization, because of value being left on the table, whether it's for employees, for customers, etc. And I started going down this path. I'm like, okay, wait, I need to stop. I'm not going to solve this tonight. But that's what got me to write the post, because I had no plans about doing that. And then that kind of caught my eye, and I'm like, that's interesting. And I'm a curious person. I can't say I'm a visionary, but I'm very good at connecting the dots or looking for patterns, or saying, that's a natural example that applies to an organization. And if you're following a lot of the things in the superpowers, then you're building a culture, an organization that is regenerative. If you're learning, if you can operate in the present and future, if you can balance preparedness and risk taking. So that's kind of why I threw that out there.
And you are completely right. So generally, if we speak about a regenerative organization, we speak about nature. It's just a nature which we have created. Let's say it's its own silo, but it is nature in our life. So if we can bring it, we will be same efficient. We will have the same, and it's not generally, then the people must understand that it is not about more being better, but sometimes even less. That growth can mean degrowth, but it does not mean scarcity. This is one of the issues which are people understanding. We have to change. Oh, we will have less and we will be poor. No, that's not true. Because if you do not consume so much, you will not need so much. I changed completely my life. So for 10 years, I do step by step in the right direction. And I am myself the right example. When I just wrote a post yesterday or today in the morning, I'm not sure, at 4 when I arrived in the office in the morning, I realized that back when I started in 2013, I was running simultaneously 3 companies in 3 cities. So implementing the systematic waste prevention. And I wrote at the time that this 3 companies can be done by 1 man, no more. Today, I am running 54 companies at the same time, implementing the same, plus 111 countries. There is no limit. This is just about learning how to do it, be able to share, be able to deliver and understand, and at the same time, not only to speak, but to listen as well and work with it, exactly as you do, as we do. That was the reason why we are meeting again, why we are discussing, why we are ready to share, because this is about the growth. This is about the regenerative, become the part of the entire picture and know why. That's the important part, because otherwise, if you go as a worker to a factory and you just the whole day fix 2 screws, what is the aim? You will never buy the car which you fix because it will be too expensive for you. And you know, this is why I all the time I speak first. Of course, the general managers and CEOs and so on has to invite me and pay my salary, but the bigger power is all the time on the ground on Gemba, because there are 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 people. On the top, there is 1, 2, 3, 10. It does not have the power of change. So the regenerative organization is like a regenerative organism. It must be understood by every single cell, the aim. And here we are at the very beginning of our discussion when we spoke exactly about this topic. So I analyze, for example, why circular economy is not working. And you know, the issue is that they concentrate on the word economy, on money only. And that's the wrong part. It's just named circular, but it's just the word which should sound well, but in fact, it does not work. Even the nature is not in this circular way as we are trying to build it up, that from plastic bottle, I will crash it and make new bottle. That's completely wrong. Because if it's a single-use bottle, why shouldn't I fill it again without crashing it? I can do it 10 times. There is no release of dangerous. No, that's not true. That's a lie. I can do it. I have here bottles which I refill for 6 years, and still the water is there. I don't drink the water. It's for my flowers, and the flowers do not complain. They are happy, growing, and in summer they are very happy that they get a water out of a bottle. Even the bottle is dirty. So it is about the understanding. And it is really a topic which we can talk for a long, long time. And I would like to invite even more people to this talk, you know, because more people, better. That's the organism which start to understand. And just recently, I changed after many years, I changed my business card. It has a new logo in, but I changed the description at the end on the back side. And I don't know if you can read it.
Yes.
And this is exactly what we have to do. So it's not just this German guy. The German guy is the giant. But when his people start to grow, this giant will have, I don't say that he will not be able to manage the company. I just say he will not be managing the company through fear.
Right.
And that's the difference. So it's not the size of the giant, it's in our eyes, in our understanding. And I don't care whether I speak to presidents or a cleaning lady. I speak to all as humans. And if they do not want to, sorry, they don't deserve to speak with me. So it is. So let's invite people. I know that you have quite a rich network, me too. So let's discuss, let's have the people the ability to become part of it. And just now YouTube changed something and Zoom, somehow they merged together something. I saw it yesterday, it came to my mail. I didn't read it yet, but something is happening in this field as well. So why not?
No, I agree. And I want to be transparent here because I've got a couple of motives. So I'll put it to you this way. If I measure my success over the last 5 or 6 years, probably 7 or 8 years, by income, I have not done very well at all. If I measure it by the network I've built, what I've learned, how I think I've impacted some people, I've done incredibly well. I need to marry the two parts together. And So there isn't a big economic motive, but I'm not going to sacrifice my values to do that. You might have seen the word ikigai. Have you seen it?
Yes.
So, I need to get myself in that middle. So, I'm looking for things like speaking engagements, organizations that I can do some education with. At the same time, if I'm not thinking and learning and creating, I'm not going to be fulfilled. And it's been interesting, for me over the last 7 or 8 years, and I've kind of transitioned some, having worked for other people and having to subjugate, subordinate some of my thinking in order to fit in or follow a framework or a methodology. I have felt freed, kind of the handcuffs to be more creative, be more curious. I'm, like you, passionate about what I'm doing. I just like to make some money too.
It took me at the very beginning, I was very successful even in the financial point of view. But I realized that money does not make me happy. There was more zeros on my bank account, and before there was a number, not zero. But I was not happier. I was, in fact, it brings me to troubles because I have to pay additional taxes, duties, and I paid all what I need, but then additionally one, because I never considered that if you are a businessman and you need just this to make money, that you need to spend the money as well. I never considered it. But the government and the duties and so on will penalize you for not spending your money, which is completely stupid, but I never thought about it. And it was just this brain. So then I met a guy, generally my brother, who is an economist, really great one. And he explained that unfortunately it is so, that it is based like this and so on. And he explained some of the topics. And then I was not so profitable, but I was happy because I did understand. And I changed completely the aim from having money, a lot of money, which I never, it was never aimed. The aim was that the family is satisfied generally. But then I changed it, and I changed it completely 180%. I changed it to build wasteless world. This is the only aim. Then came COVID, which stopped me to be in factories. But right now, I am on the stage of reaching the people, and the people willing to pay for my time.
Sure.
To have me there. And this is exactly the stage which you need to find. And I hope I will help you with it, to need to find, because you have a knowledge which I do not have. And I will never, ever try to get your brain into my head, because I know it will not work. The same for you. If you take my brain into it will simply not work. But what will work is that I will utilize your knowledge and your experience. You will utilize mine, and together in harmony, we will deliver the results. This is why I am so happy that I'm meeting so many people who are great, and they are somehow, in some way, can be struggling, but it is not because they are not great. It is because they, for example, do not like to sell their work. And for us, it's all the time hard, if you are not a salesman who is ignorant to everything, generally, to sell your own time is the hardest thing, because you think, okay, my value is not 1 million per minute. It's not true. Maybe it's 10 million per minute. But we never thought it, because we thought, okay, If I get 1 million per minute, and what will it change? Will I ever spend this 1 minute? No, because we are simple people. We are humans. We are not business guys. We are not presidents, excellencies, general secretaries. Antonio Guterres is his name. I came to my mind. No, we do not need to be the richest man in the world. We would like to have the world. And if it will be blue marble, as it was at the time when both of us has been born, that will be the heritage which we would like to leave behind, not a full bank account. So I would be happy to help you with. And I know that from your network and from the response of your network to my post and your post, I know that the people are listening to you. The only thing is right now to get it in a right direction, that the people will be only listening, but they will be able to or willing to pay. And I hope that this recording will show up that the people, when they get you on board, that you deliver value in which your salary or payment or cost are just drop in the ocean which you bring towards them, because you bring future. And you bring, exactly as you mentioned at the end, the regenerative organization through the superpowers, not of one, but of 5,000 people who are working in a factory.
Yep. No, so, that's true. And the thing is, like you said, money has never been my point of existence. Being fulfilled, doing the things I love, helping people, whether they're, business people, organizations. I would cringe when, I'd be talking to a CEO and he said his job was to increase shareholder value. And I'm thinking to myself, that is so selfish. Plus, it, for the employees, they are very unmotivated. And, even to the point, I will sometimes criticize myself. Maybe that's not the right word, but that I don't have that, I'll put in quotes, killer instinct, because it's never been about me. It's been about my impact on others and how I can improve what they're doing, whether it's improving performance, improving impact, having an organization work better, get more out of what they're doing. And it kind of goes, it's never been either or. But I also know, I have two boys, both in grad school. And I'm 58. And I know if I want to do the things that I'd like to do while I'm healthy, that is part of the equation.
The best example for the companies who would like to, or who ask why to work with you, it's a simple. Can they imagine to have a company filled with people who are engaged, who love their work, who does not come to work because of the salary? The salary is number 8 or 10 somewhere on the list. But if you love your work, you will be there first. You will deliver the results with passion. You will leave last. You will not ask for, you will love the results which you deliver. And that will make the companies completely different. I will connect you and I don't know whether I did or not, I will connect you to Industry 5.0 ambassador in the US with Charles. Charles is helping companies with HR issues. And I think you will have a quite interesting discussion and a lot of common things. And at the same time, as soon as I will look around the work which I will deliver at the new organization in the US, I think there is exactly, it's about the people who know. There is a lot of things which I don't know from you and or your experience and knowledge, and the same, so we can combine.
Sure.
I was delivering a keynote speech in one school, and one of the students asked me, because I mentioned that I have around me people who know something different than me, that I do not like to have people who have the same, who know the same. And he asked me why. And I explained to him, it's simply, I love my work. I love what I do. Why should anyone do what I love? I need that they deliver what they love. Otherwise, there will be a crash.
Sure.
And that's not the way which I would like to have. And they understood, I think. And this is exactly what we are creating as the global Industry 5.0 ecosystem. It's not a company, it's really an ecosystem. And this is why I love it.
Just something that's interesting. 2 points. One, I'm talking this afternoon with a business school professor from Brazil. He's commented on some of my stuff. He does a lot of work around tensions that have to be navigated. He's done a lot of work for the Center for Creative Leadership and talking about how we can combine. And he's someone who could be part of a discussion. The other thing, I somehow got connected with the American Society of Quality. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting because as we were talking to this woman on Monday about speaking, but embedded in quality obviously is the topic of waste. One of their key topics is around innovation. Quality ties into, and innovation ties to the organization and people. It's not just process. And that's something that they're pushing. And I'm not an ISO expert, but I know there's ISO on business continuity. There's ISO now on resilience. There's ISO now on innovation. And that's something, she started talking about it. Luckily, I remembered a little bit knowing business continuity, and that there's recently stuff around organizational resilience. There's just like there's different types of waste, there's different types of resilience. So that to me is interesting, in terms of making those connections.
I made my first keynote speech to the Indian Association for Quality Control. And generally, it resulted in the fact that we can increase the quality control function quite significantly. Because at the moment, quality control in the factory, it's generally a waste generator. Because if they found something wrong, it's being wasted. Usually it's not repaired, it's just thrown away. And we define different types of generally how they can increase and improve their functionality. Because during the keynote, not a single quality expert was willing to generate waste intentionally. But it was the result. They just did not thought about it. And that's so interesting that I never thought that waste will connect everything, but unfortunately it is so. It is so. I call it unfortunate because we reach this stage as a society, but It is so. So it's a lot of people, as I said, and I think a lot of value, but it is important that the people do that. Firstly, you have to set your own value. This is what my brother told me. What is your value? Is it 10 crowns, 10 US dollar per hour, or is it 10,000 US dollar? I said to him, in 2 minutes, I can save 50,000 US dollars. And his answer was, okay, so why you should charge your time 100 US dollar per hour? It's not right. And he's right. He is completely right. So first, we must have the understanding of our own value. And that's hard for you and me. It's hard. For some people, not. And the second is that we have to understand that time to time we have to deliver content for free as well. It's not right because, if you, and this is what I have learned, and it's a very sad topic, because if you deliver or give anything for free,
No
the people
value.
do not value it. The people do not value it. To be honest, I don't know what, but if you take all the charities and all these which get things for free, they do not value it. That's and I don't know. It has something to do with human mind, and I don't, until now, I don't know why it is so, but it is so. In every country, it was so. And yeah, let's do it together. So if you would like to share this recording, let's do it. Share it. I can put it on my YouTube channel as well. We can double it. We can increase it. There will be links to your company, to my company, wherever. And let's invite the people to similar discussion. Let them have to say if they can. It will be very interesting.
Yeah, no, I agree. So a couple of things. One, I recorded to the cloud, so I can share that with you. That's number one. 2 hours is a lot for people to go through. So I don't know if you're thinking about clips or, that might be something
generally, I was told your YouTube video cannot be longer than 1 minute, and so on and so on. My mostly viewed video is 5 minutes message. The second, it's 10 minutes, and the third is half an hour. So all these experts, they are speaking about content which is fun and joy. We do not speak about fun and joy. We speak only about future of human and humanity. We cannot joke. We cannot make fun of it. I cannot smile until I do deliver the result, So don't follow these instructions. Let's put it there. It's about sharing the content with the other people. If they will like it,
okay.
If they will like it, they will share it and they will enjoy 2 hours. If they don't like it, they will not share it. So we will see the results. As I said, you upload it, I upload it. We promote it on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, wherever, and we will see the numbers. It's so simple.
Okay, no, that's fine. I am all open for thinking differently, and I don't think it's about sound bites either. A couple of things, and then we can wrap up. One, you talked about value, and how do we assess our value? This consulting firm that I was with before, people would say, "What's your hourly rate? What's your day rate?" And we were not selling time. We were selling expertise. And the fact that we had done something, over and over, knew it inside and out, which meant we could do it faster, or we could do more. It's not based on time. We tried, didn't always get away with it, but tried to focus on value in talking about what's your value? What value are you going to get if you keep on doing what you're doing? versus the value you get by doing what we're suggesting. I would not define that value. I would have them define the value. So if, for example, if you think your strategy is worth $100 million, and I say to you, what's the likelihood today that you'll get that 100 million? And the person, very often would say, well, half of our projects work, half don't work, this, that, and the other thing. So 60%. So you're telling me it's worth 60 million expected value. I said, now, if you do these things that we're suggesting, what do you think the value would be? Oh, now it's 85%. So the difference is 25% times 100 million is 25 million. And I would say, I'm not going to ask you for 25 million. Let's just, I'm going to ask for 500,000 for this type of work over the next, 6 months or whatever it is. I said, even if we're off by a factor of 10, you're still getting, 5,000 times or 500 times your investment. I don't make all the decisions. You do in terms of how this gets implemented and whether or not you follow it. But there's so much return because of the value potential. So trying to price on impact and value delivered was point one. Point two, when you talked about, quality systems, and the whole thing with quality was how total quality management, how do you embed that in the organization? So you weren't fixing things after the fact, you were avoiding those mistakes to start. It's the same thing, you talk about waste. You don't want to capture waste after, you want to prevent it in the beginning. So building those concepts in. The same thing holds true for resilience and preparedness. If you're only doing that after something happens, you've been hurt. And if you don't remember, you'll be hurt the next time. If you build it in, you can avoid mistakes. You won't get impacted as much. So same thing for sustainability. I can talk about saving the environment after we screw up. Or I can talk about being proactive and not screwing up in the first place. So I think these are all things to do, just like quality, early. And, we're early in the process, but it's that same type of intellectual, mental revolution that we're trying to create.
We call it the language of efficiency, which we generally, both of us, use to deliver the understanding message. On last COP28 in Egypt, they celebrated, the politicians celebrated that it was created lost and damaged fund with I don't know how many hundreds of millions. There is nothing to celebrate, because they celebrate that something will be damaged first, that we allow to be damaged first, and then the money will make another money. There is a simple reason why waste prevention is not being a really favorite topic and being banned generally by World Economic Forum, United Nations, and many others, which you will never expect because they speak about sustainability. The reason is financial again. If you will learn to work better with the money which you have, with the resources which you have, you don't need to borrow new money. You don't need to print other money. You don't need generally the system which was built on really ill groundstones. You will not need them. And they do understand it. I am just a simple man, but I will not say killing the giant, but they are scared of me, of the work, because it is so simple as you describe it as well. It is so simple to deliver the change. And you do not need investment. You need here to change the mindset. No matter how much money you put on your head, it will not work faster if you do not work with your brain.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the way. So, and it is about making the network of people who are connected, who speak the same language, who do understand, who follow the same aim. And if you put them together, there will be 8 billion of those. And
Yep.
those who are against, there will be few hundred, few thousands, maybe, not more. So who has bigger power?
Yep.
So I think that will be the topic for next discussion.
Oh, that sounds great. I think that's I think that's a good way to end, because it becomes regenerative. It's not wasting what we have, it's building it with others. So I will send you the link. We definitely need to continue this, and we can talk about how we can do that, and bring each other into each other's networks, and conversations, and help amplify each of our messages.
Exactly.
So
but before we end, if you will allow me to end up the same way as we ended last time, I don't know
Sure.
whether I told you, with a screenshot, and we follow one aim: to build wasteless world for all. So, okay, let me check whether it's safe or not. Last time it was there, but let me.
It was like, what's it, like April 4th? I'm trying to look at my notes. I can tell you. April 20th.
Okay. So it is there. You look beautiful again, much more better than me. I must do something with myself to catch up, at least.
Well, what I did, I got a new camera, because I've been using the camera on my computer, and I guess it was maybe $30. Instead of the camera, I guess, was $720. This is 180, so it's high definition. It works.
The people try to call me down with the same answers, but I know I'm not nice. That's fine. You can tell me. I'm just the under the carpet looker, so I don't need to look nice. No. Have a nice day. Free of waste and wasting in all its forms. Stay safe, free, and be visible, because you are the role model which the others should follow.
I appreciate that. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye, Jay.